Hello and welcome to the Inside Stylist podcast, where we talk all about interiors, from interviews with interior stylists, writers and the up-and-coming interiors brands we all want to hear about and feature. There's so much to talk about. I'm your host, Emma Morton-Turner. Enjoy the show.
Hello. So it's just you and me today. I am going to talk all about Pinterest, but as I haven't done a solo episode for a little while, I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you to everybody who has been leaving reviews and sending me a message, commenting on Instagram, commenting on the website. Just say thank you. You guys have been really lovely. I love it when you message me and say, oh, I know someone who's into this and they'd be great for the podcast, or would you consider putting someone else on the podcast? It's really lovely, and I really appreciate all the enthusiasm and support that I've had in the last year. It's been going a year now. I can't believe that. So just taking that moment to say that. Today I'm going to be talking about Pinterest because I've got very into Pinterest. I've been researching how to make it work and all the things you can do to get your numbers to go up. And I'll tell you why that is in a second. Before I start, I've titled this podcast 10 Things I've Learned About Pinterest that helped me reach 100,000 monthly views. Now, brutal honesty, I'm not quite at 100,000 views. I'm at 96.5 thousand. So I'm really nearly there, and I'm pretty sure I'll be at 100,000 tomorrow morning when this podcast goes live. So go find Emma Morton Turner, and you can see if that happened. Maybe I'll even share it when I share the podcast out everywhere, but we'll see. Anyway, now there's two ways of looking at Pinterest. They have the monthly views and they have the followers. And Pinterest, it doesn't matter how many followers you have because people are using Pinterest as a search engine. It's a visual search engine. It's not a social media site. So you could have 100 followers but be getting 400,000 views. The 400,000 views are literally coming from that search engine. So it doesn't matter how many followers you have, which is a really nice thing. Of course, now I'm caught up with the metrics of the monthly views, but that's okay. It goes up quickly. So it feels quite nice. It's not like Instagram where it's a very slow burn. The reason Pinterest is so important is, now I've heard this bandied around and I've done a lot of research today, looked at lots of websites that have all this information about how long a post is kind of relevant for. They've got a funny name for it. It's like a high reach or something. And it's basically the life of your pin or your post or your Instagram picture or your story or that sort of thing. And the most relevant one I found was from January this year. And then before that, it was October last year. So I've looked at about 3 or 4 and they've all pretty much said very similar things. So I think it's probably still relevant now in March 2019. So the life of a Twitter post is between 15 and 18 minutes. A Facebook post is about 5 hours. Instagram is between 21 and 48 hours. That's practically doubled since last year. LinkedIn lasts about 24 hours. Pinterest lasts 3 to 4 months. Because it's just whether someone is searching for that relevant term at any one time. So that is why Pinterest is brilliant. The only thing that comes higher than Pinterest or has a longer life is a blog. A blog is relevant, or a blog post is relevant for around 2 years. Because again, people are searching for that relevant content. And that's why Pinterest is important, because you can push people to your website, to your blog, to your Instagram, and it will keep sending people there time and time again for a very long time. And that is why I started looking at it. I wanted to send more people to Inside Stylist to find the blog, to find the podcast, to find the members, all of the information that there is on there. So I'm using it as a marketing tool, which is essentially what Pinterest is. It's searchable content, isn't it? So I'm not going to talk numbers of people coming to Inside Stylist from Pinterest, other than to say that it was like 1. The last year has probably been 1 because I just haven't been sharing images over on there. And it's now a lot more than 1 in the last month. But the numbers are so small, I'm not going to talk about that. But I am going to tell you that my cake blog that has had 1 new blog post written on it in the last year, in fact, in the last 15 months, when I looked at how many people came to cakesbakesandcookies.com from Pinterest just last month, so from the 14th of February to the 14th of March, it was 1,375. So every time I've pinned a picture to Pinterest, it's sent someone back to my cake blog. So I've got 400 posts on my cake blog, and hardly any of them have got images because it got hacked. but people are still coming years later. And randomly, I got an email just before I sat down to do this podcast. I got an email from Pinterest. I have a business account, and it tells you what your top pins are. So my top pins for this week got me 11,823 impressions. So if all of those are relevant now, actually they are relevant. The top three, one is a light designed by Sarah Colson, who was the podcast guest on episode 49. So it's only been up for it'll be 2 weeks tomorrow that image has been on Pinterest. And the other two are cakes. One of them is a cake, a football shirt, and I think it's about 7 years old. And that was my highest pin from last week. So that's the kind of reason that Pinterest has got such a longevity. So I'm going to get into the 10 things I've learned about Pinterest, because every time anyone talks to me, I'm desperate to tell them, and I can't tell you how excited I am to share all these findings with you. And this is not from me. This is from listening to podcasts, reading blog posts, looking at the business side of all the blog posts that Pinterest write about how to maximize your use on Pinterest. Pinterest is brilliant. They write it so well, and it's so easy to follow. It's brilliant. Love it. And I'm not even doing everything yet. I've literally just done what I can cope with my crazy life. And if I can do it, anyone can do it, because my days are crazy full with crazy animals and podcast recordings and all that jazz. Number one, I've learned that Pinterest is a long-term gain. The more you put into it, the more you get out. And what the general rule of thumb is that you post 70% of other people's content, so repinning things you found on Pinterest, and 30% of your own original content. So images from your blog, images from Instagram that you can send over there, any of that. Pinterest likes you to use the platform and share it. You know, they want you to share the love. So the more you share of other people's content, as well as your own, the more people will be sent your way. Number two, what I did when I started using Pinterest, I would use it to find ideas for, maybe I'm doing a craft shoot and it's Halloween. I might just go and pin a load of pictures that are Halloween crafts and then pull them together and present them to a client and say, I'd like to do these for your craft shoot. That's literally what I did. But what you actually do for maximum benefit is you name your boards, you have a profile, you have to make sure your profile is done correctly, and the key is to use keywords. It's SEO all over again, search engine optimization. It's all about using the right words that people are using. So in your description about yourself, you only get 160 characters, which is nothing. I really struggled with this, but that's the first thing. If someone goes to your Pinterest page at the top with all the boards underneath, it will say who you are. So if you want to share you're an interior stylist, or you're into interiors, or you're a decorator or a cake baker or whatever, you need to put those keywords into that very short description. You need to make it short and snappy. So I've heard a few people talking about how many boards are the optimum number. The optimum number is 68 apparently. And I've heard a few people, 5 to 10 either way of that, but you can have 500 in total. I don't know anyone who could cope with 500 boards, but 500 is the most you can have, including secret boards and archived boards. So I didn't realise you could archive boards. And when I started looking at this, I went in and realised I had boards from Christmas shoots from 2014 and all sorts of things like that. And I don't want to get rid of those pins. They're still good to look at. So I just archived them so that anyone coming to my board can't see this old news. Also, you can merge boards, so you can have all of that Christmas content go into a more updated board, or just have your secret boards for different clients could be hidden away, and then when they're no longer, when you've finished your shoot, you just merge that board in with one that's just about Christmas or whatever the topic is, so you don't have to lose them. So you can have archived boards, you can have secret boards. Secret boards are brilliant for shoots, and you can kind of link through to other people. So I'm sure people know this, but I'm just going to say it anyway. If you have a secret board, you can invite your client to share that board with you, and then they can pin to it as well, and you can both look at it, and it's only secret between you guys. The names of everything are really important in Pinterest. So rather than like the board names, rather than saying something like Emma's bedroom, people aren't going to be looking for that as much as they're going to say bedroom ideas, bedroom inspo, bedroom style. It's really important to kind of think, how do people search? And all the boards need a description. None of my boards had a description when I started this on the 14th of February. Not a single one. So I went back, I kind of merged all my boards that were relevant, I removed some, I archived loads, and then I went back through and I redid all the descriptions on them while I was watching Endeavour. And basically, I made sure I had keywords, because keywords are massively important in the names, in the descriptions. But if the keywords are just shoved in there, so you can't just say interior, inspo, inspiration, you have to make sure it's a sentence, because you get penalised for that. I think it's the same everywhere now. They're so clever in the search engine that picks up the search words. They know if you're not making sense and you're kind of just jamming a load of keywords in there. So it has to make logical sense. It has to be conversational. Well, I make it conversational. I just make it like I'm chatting to you guys. So yeah, good keywords in the description and make sure it makes proper sense. You can arrange your boards any way you like. You literally, click and drag into the right place. But if you have got a board that you want to be a top priority, put that board at the top. And the ones that don't matter so much, put them lower. Seasonal boards are really big on Pinterest. They love it when you do seasonal boards. So it could be a trend. So it could just be, so when Pantone bring out the colour of the year, or Dulux bring out colour of the year, you could do a kind of living coral or a spiced honey board. And that board would need to go at the top right when all of that content is being spread everywhere and everyone's talking about it. But then after a few months, when people aren't talking about that anymore and it's Christmas or Easter, you want to push your Easter and Christmas boards to the top. So you just need to drag them and put them at the top. Another thing you can do is you can segment the content within the board. And I've looked at this. I think I have about 2,000 pins on my craft boards. I've done a lot of craft in the last few years, which makes me very happy. And I could segment all of my crafts into sewing, gluing, paper crafts, maybe it'd be Christmas, Easter, all of that sort of thing. And then within the board, you have almost mini boards inside the boards. Now, I personally don't really like that. If I need to show someone something, I might do that. But when I've gone into Pinterest boards and seen they're all segmented, it's like I've got to go into that one and now into that one. So I'm personally not a big fan of it. But if it's something that works for you, then it's definitely worth doing. Another thing that everybody I've seemed to have listened to talking about it on podcasts or interviews or courses or anything is that people look and plan 45 days before an actual event. And I thought that was phenomenal. So when I was doing this, I was thinking about putting a pancake recipe on the cake blog. And it was pretty much a week before. And I thought, oh my God, that's just such a waste of time. I mean, it's not a waste of time, obviously, because people still eat pancakes. They're just not all going to find me through Pinterest. But I should have been putting it on, in January or something. So you have to really think ahead and pin ahead. And I think this is probably more relevant when you're repinning content. I've got pancakes on my cake blog from years ago, probably 4 or 5 different recipes. I could repin those 45 days before Pancake Day, and they're more likely to be found because people are starting to search. Gosh, that was a long one, wasn't it? Right, number 3. We're only at number 3. So much for a quick one, eh? When you're looking for search words, when you're looking for keywords, if you just start typing in the search engine, it will crop up underneath everything that has been searched for in the past. And that's a really good indicator of what you should either call a board or put a description in your content. And it's just a really easy way of finding what is going on. Number 4, how to pin. So this is pretty obvious, but I keep seeing it over and over again. Every image you put on Pinterest should link to a website. I don't know why anyone would pin something not to a website, but if you've got a blog or a website, you can put a plugin on that has that little triangle with the P in it, so people can literally just click on that P and share your content. And the more of that you do, the easier it is for other people to share your content, and you don't even have to do it. That's the best thing ever. So how to pin. Make sure you're linking through to your website. Make sure you've got a good description. So when you go to pin something and the image comes up, underneath you have that little box. And that little box will literally be the name of the image from whatever the website is. So I name all my images on website because that's really good SEO. But in Pinterest, you need to add to it. You need to add more description. Again, nice conversational. Here's a great picture of a sofa because soft leather is so on trend or whatever. And then what's really important is also to say something along the lines of, to see more, come along to insidestylist.com. Tell them where it's from, because although they can pin it and see, you're branding, you're pushing people back to the website. You're telling them that there's more content going on. And then you add the hashtags. Now, hashtags is relatively new. I think they've only been around on Pinterest for about 18 months. And I didn't even know you could do hashtags on Pinterest. And I think that is probably, that with the description is probably the key to why my numbers have grown so quickly. And you can have 20, they need to be relevant. And again, like with the searching for the right descriptions and the right the names for the boards, if you just put hashtag and then start typing your words, so maybe it's sustainable, it will come up with sustainable living, sustainable life, sustainable whatever. You can then see what hashtags are being used. And a bit like in Instagram, you can also see how many people have posted that image. You should also use your name, your company. If I do a pin for a blog, I will mention the company, or if it's a podcast, I'll mention the name of the guest. It's really good to kind of share that kind of information. It's really good searchable content. Descriptions are 500 characters long, which I thought sounded really long until I tried to put in 20 hashtags. I don't actually worry too much about doing 20 hashtags. I just make sure I've got at least 10 really good relevant ones. Number 5, you can link your Instagram to Pinterest. Now, I haven't worked out how to do this without having to pay for yet another app. I actually just copy the link from an image on my Pinterest, and then I open up Pinterest, and where the little plus is, I just go in there, and then there's a little world sign. I click on that and it says pin the link, and I pin the link, and then it asks you for the board. It's literally straightforward. So I do it quite manually, and this is kind of my pinning, my 30% every day. I'll just go in and pin some really old pictures from Instagram that are relevant, put them on the right board. Some people do Instagram boards, so you can just put all of your stuff into one place, one board. But it might be lighting, and it might be good for a living room board or whatever. So you can kind of repin different pictures again and again, obviously, just making sure they go into the right board. Pinterest will pick up the descriptions and know that if you've put a board that's just random in there, if you put in living room shots that are living rooms, it will push them a lot more than if you put a toothbrush picture in a living room. Number 6, get a business account. So this is very similar to Instagram. If you have a business account, you get the analytics, and you can see what pins are doing well, what's being repinned, what's being clicked through, how many people have shared it, repinned it, all that stuff. And it's just really good to know what is working. So most of mine at the moment are actually interiors, even with all the gazillion cakes I've got on there. And that's another thing. I've just got one MOMT Pinterest account. I have all my inside stylists on there. I have all my cake stuff. I have all my goals for my kids' bedrooms and anything else. And anything that just gets, anything else that's just random, I put it under my Just Cause board, which I don't think anyone's going to look at. It's just for me. So I quite like to have that little just for me board. But when I looked at my analytics today to see how many pictures are being, or which pictures are being used, it's the podcast images. So the images that I put on the show notes for the podcast are the ones that are doing the best at the moment. And like I said, Sarah Colson's interview. Sarah Colson is the designer for the prism lighting for Debenhams. That's episode 49. I'll link through in the show notes so you can see what I'm talking about. But she designed a light for 2LG for their pink bathroom. And pink is obviously really big. Pink bathrooms are really big. That post that has been on for not even 2 weeks has had 9,391 impressions. And that's phenomenal. And then the next one down, it wasn't even 5,000. So to have that, that's a really good indicator that, okay, so pink bathrooms are really big. 2LG is really big. Sarah Colson's really big. It's all those kind of, it's real designer lighting. It's all of that stuff is so I can take that information away and know that maybe I should be pinning more of that, or maybe I should write a blog post about that. So that's so valuable. So yeah, and it's free to get a business account as well. So it's super easy. Number 7, pin for later. Now, I hadn't heard about this. Sophie Warren-Smith told me this last week. And I think it was Kate Ferris, who is on one of the podcasts I listened to. She is one of the best podcasts on Pinterest I'd listened to. I will link through in the show notes. Her podcast is called, I think it's Grow with Soul. Hers and Sarah Tasker's Pinterest podcast from #Authentic were both 2 of the best podcasts I've listened to about Pinterest. But anyway, so Sophie was telling me about this pin for later. And basically you put a picture at the bottom of a post and you literally write a title that says pin for later. So it kind of jogs people's minds to think, I want to come back to this feature on pink bathrooms. I will pin this now so I remember to read it and I'll know where to come back to. And that's brilliant. I haven't done that yet. I do need to get on with that, but I think that's a brilliant tip. Thanks for that, Soph. Number 8, you can use a scheduler to plan out Pinterest content. I think this is just another thing to add to your list of things to do. So I'm saying this just because everybody says it and you guys might find it useful. Tailwind is the one that everybody talks about. It's approved by Pinterest and it will let you repin one picture, XYZ, across months or something. And you can literally just repin lots and lots and lots. I use Later, which is the app I use for pinning to Instagram, posting to Instagram, and I can do Pinterest at the same time. So I've been using that. I don't know if that is actually approved. I haven't found that it's approved, but I'm using it at the moment. And I don't really, basically, when I plan my podcast Instagram posts or my blog post Instagram posts, I now do a Pinterest one at the same time because I can do it in one go. So Later is brilliant. You can literally do one post and put it to Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest. So you can pin an image to 4 different social medias at once, and you can kind of go in and tag people and change hashtags and change the size of the copy for Twitter and that sort of thing. And that's what I do. Might not be the best thing to do because I know Later is approved for Instagram, but I don't know if it's approved for Pinterest. So take that with a very large pinch of salt. Number 9, make the images work hard. Pinterest likes long, tall images. They like portrait that's been stretched a little. And if you want to make a picture stand out more, it needs to be portrait. But if you want to really make it stand out, then put words on top of that picture. Every post that I have put onto Pinterest that has a kind of a description of the podcast or the blog or the product has done better than any of the others that don't. So definitely do that. I use Canva. I've basically opened up one folder that has 4 different types of Pinterest posts. And for every blog post and every podcast I do now, I just change the content in those 4 and have them ready, and then I pin them. And the reason I do this is because Pinterest likes fresh content, even if it's going to the same link. So although I'm sharing content about one podcast, I will have 4 different images. So Pinterest will go, oh, new content. So that's what I do now, which is quite good fun. And it's really quick and zippy because I've got it set up there. I just upload the images and then change the words and it's done. God, I love Canva. Canva's so good. Number 10, pin regularly. It's better to pin for 5 minutes a day than once a week for an hour. And it's better to mix up old and new content when you do that. So I will literally sit down, I will do it on my laptop as much as I can, and I will pin images from my website every day. And I might just do 5 images, or I might go into I'm going through the podcasts and the blogs and sharing the images to them each time. And I will do about 5 of my content, and then I will sit and I will just go deep. And sometimes I set a timer because actually you just go down that rabbit hole. And it's a really happy place to be. Actually, I think that is something that I really have to mention. The moment I stopped sitting, scrolling through Instagram and started pinning on Pinterest, I found I felt a little bit happier because you're not looking at Instagram and thinking, oh, I wasn't invited to this, and oh, my friends are out over there and I wasn't invited, or oh, this person's been given this, or whatever. You're just looking and you're being inspired. And from a mental kind of mindfulness slant, I think Pinterest is so good. It's just uplifting and inspiring. So anyway, that's my 10. I hope that is massively useful for you. I hope that I'm 100,000 tomorrow, more than that. There's loads I still have to learn. I mean, I've literally been doing this for 1 month. I went from 33.5 thousand to 96.5 thousand, hopefully 100,000 tomorrow. There are things like rich pins. I haven't even got into that. Rich pins, you have to get some code put on your website, and then you can put recipes on your Pinterest, and you can put, it's just a newsy things. I think there's 4 or 5 categories that it really pushes you to the top. There's featured pins. There's all sorts of things that I haven't even got around to yet. I've literally just done this for 31 days, and I've had massive it's brilliant. You go in and 1 minute you're at, say, 72,000, and then you look the next day or even later that day and you're like, oh, I'm at 78, and it jumps up really quickly. And then you get all these you get like a little notification in the top right hand corner, and you look and it says, oh, so and so has pinned this, so and so has saved your pin. And it's like there's more people to find and see what they have pinned. So it's just a really inspirational place to be. Anyway, I think I've waffled on long enough. I hope I've given you tons and tons of value, because I just feel like I've learned all this stuff. It's mind-boggling what you can do with Pinterest and how happy it can make you. So I hope that you can go and be Pinterest winners too. Anyway, I'm going to go now before I waffle on any longer. It's been great to chat to you on my own today. I haven't done a solo for ages. But lots more interviews lined up, so stay tuned.
Thanks for listening to the Inside Stylist podcast. You'll find all the details from today's show over on the website insidestylist.com. If you enjoyed the show, I'd love it if you would go over to iTunes and rate and review it. It's the best way to help other people find the show, and I would really appreciate it. Until next time, bye for now.